If you're watching this video and have not seen the Gregory Horror Show, please watch the Gregory Horror Show seasons 1 and 2. It is the coolest tween horror you will ever see. I really regret not being that interested in the show based on only the first season. The second season was spectacular, and I regret ever thinking it was simple. The Gregory Horror Show is a TV show that is essentially tween surreal horror. It is horror using low poly animation that is made to be surreal but also not too scary since it is made for kids. The whole premise of the show is different characters coming to terms with themselves and finding their own sense of self. It is to teach them how to make good decisions and to help them be the mirror they want to reflect onto the world. In this video, I am going to continue my hyper-analysis of the Gregory Horror Show, but we are going to move forward with Season 2. I've only seen Season 1 and Season 2, and the whole point of this video is to get people hyped up for Season 4 of the Gregory Horror Show. It is coming out very soon. I'm not entirely sure when, but it'll be either this year or next year. I intentionally have not seen any more than I have already have, because I want to do hyper-analysis of this show sequentially. The last video I made had things I was correct about, and stuff I was entirely wrong about. One very crucial thing was the whole premise of the show. I originally thought that the whole show was a dream of the protagonist, and that was why everything was so surreal and symbolic. I was right about a lot of the symbolism, but I was wrong about the implication of it. This might be one of the proudest and most well-researched things I have currently done on my channel, and I hope despite this, I am not too correct and not too wrong. I do enjoy comparing and contrasting what I was right and wrong about simultaneously. I still stand by Walt Disney's premise being felt throughout the entire show. Too hard to ignore the obvious signs of Mickey Mouse in all the references throughout Season 1 and 2. I will say that Season 2 did less in terms of Disney vibes and more of Hotel California Eagle level energy. That something else will be explained much further in detail about, along with the other details I just mentioned. The new season has a brand new protagonist. It briefly mentions the original one in a small part in the first episode, though I will say she's a woman who is jealous for the things she cannot have. The protagonist also has self-control and regulation issues that are also a continuous theme of the second season. She comes across Gregory the same way the original protagonist had found Gregory.
Forever.
This time, though, she enters a pink hotel room with roses on the wallpaper instead of the green one, symbolizing her issues with lust versus issues regarding matters of the heart, like the original protagonist. She sees a dead rose, symbolizing her loss of beauty and transformation in regards to herself. Gregory says he will replace the rose with a brand new one and leaves very suspiciously. In the next episode, Gregory touches the rose that he replaced at the start of the first episode. He touches it and bleeds onto the rose. Blood generates over the rose like crazy, uncontrollably. The brand new rose represents her new sense of self in the Gregory home. Gregory bleeding out on it represents the vitality generated for herself from Gregory while at the Gregory home. It also has a double meaning of insecurities and defensiveness she has for herself within the Gregory home that she is residing in. When the rose asks her to hold it, that represents her being held back by her own insecurities and defensiveness of the way she has within the Gregory home. The rose starts getting angry and starts attacking her with the thorns that the rose has. When the rose starts attacking her, it represents her insecurities lashing out towards her sense of self. The rose dies and Gregory offers to remove it for her. Her insecurities and defensiveness towards her sense of beauty is ultimately how the rose dies. only to be replaced by the one person who's the embodiment of self-doubt. Gregory burning the rose is Gregory banishing the feelings associated with the rose itself. Gregory was then attacked by the rose and kissed with a lipstick mark on his head. This is the affection she has for Gregory over that he did what he had to do, even though it was a thankless deed. In the next episode, she wants to smoke a cigarette. She realizes her lighter doesn't work and tries to use a candle instead, but the candle in her room gets burnt out by the wind. The lighter not being able to burn is a metaphor in regards to thoughts not being able to process correctly. Candles are typically a metaphor for wishes and desires. The candle burning out by the wind represents value of bad intent being desired. She wanders over to Gregory at the front desk of the hotel to ask how to light the cigarette. He hands her a candle so she can light it. The candle being the manifestation of your own worst intent. Her lighting the cigarette with a candle is that her desires are finally coming true for itself. Gregory goes on about how the hotel establishment doesn't really care if people smoke or not, and continues on about how women tend to smoke more these days. I believe this isn't talking about smoking specifically itself, as much as it's talking about women tend to be a product of societal prejudice, resulting in unhealthy coping mechanisms, not specific to smoking itself. As she is walking back to her room, the chef from the first season, who cooked the meal that made the original protagonist extremely sick as he simmers, walks in. He sees a cigarette in her hand and immediately starts lunging at her with his knife. He is yelling that it is bad for her taste and an enemy of cuisine, which is actually just a real side effect of smoking addiction. Gregory saves her by putting out the light of the candle out, and she starts heading back to her room. Gregory putting the fire out of the chef is him putting out the desire to do something about her wanting to quit smoking. The fact that the cook was able to be stopped by simply blowing him out is also the same way you stop food from cooking while you are cooking it. In the next episode, Catherine shows up with Gregory. Gregory is trying to prevent her from entering horny jail for reasons that are he is lying and is actually in on it. Her being the liquid-inducing, bloodthirsty snake that she is. As previously mentioned in my other video, she's a lovely, seductive weapon fear is essentially in a very symbolic way. Fear is a weapon and a drug that is you handing your power to someone or something else. That is exactly what Catherine is known for. She starts off by saying she is at a delicate age. I better take some blood, which is quite the quote to take out of context. The main protagonist hiding under the bed is her trying to hide from her own fears. The same reason why a lot of kids complain about their fears wandering from their bed to haunt them in the middle of the night. Also the same reason why I would cover my whole body with blankets as a kid so that vampires would not get access to my neck as easily. Her stabbing her unhinged medical syringe so easily but yet somehow able to miss herself is also quite interesting. I also love how Catherine says, too bad. I thought I may have penetrated her carotid arteries, which is also a brilliant quote. The carotid arteries are responsible for delivering blood to the human brain, implying she wants to suck the vitality from her brain, similar to what happened in season 1 of the show where the character was in and out of consciousness. In the next episode, we encounter the most evil asshole of the entire Gregory Horror Show. He is so evil, in fact, I feel like I'm already in hell just simply making this video with him in it. James is Gregory's grandson, and as any grandchild of the infamous Gregory Mouse for his age, he is literally an evil piece of ass. He lies about Catherine not being in her dorm. She enters the dorm, and obviously Catherine is there along with Gregory. James grabs Catherine's sharp needle and then throws it at the air. and only for it to land on top of Gregory's head. Catherine cannot resist taking blood now and sucks all the power Gregory has for himself. If you are afraid in life, you aren't just making impulse decisions. Those decisions are caused by you transferring your own power to what you are afraid of. Gregory turns into a mouse piece of wrinkled raisin skin, and the episode ends with the protagonist still having her blood and Catherine still, somehow, not being in a horny jail. In the next episode, James hands the protagonist the doll from the first season. In hindsight, the doll is definitely not a representation of false awakenings, since obviously this is not a dream, more like the painful and scary truth of being ignorant towards your own sense of self. Gregory closes the door, and you can imagine the next part yourself.
I want my dolly! I want my dolly!
The chef smells the cigarettes she was smoking in her own dorm. He walks in the dorm and takes a swipe with his knife for the cigarette and accidentally takes out the fake pretend little girl. The chef comes not long after coming in, is immediately put out of his own suffering by Gregory himself, if you consider any of these people sufferable. In the next episode, you see that Gregory has a bar establishment. At his own establishment, alcoholic drinks representing in bad faith. You come across another character from the previous season. This is the Daddy Clock character, who has "The world is yours" written on it. He's still rambling about what I assume happened in the first episode when he couldn't reverse time for another character and made him feel worse. I don't believe he is actually a time-traveling clock. I believe he's actually a representation of how we want certain memories to be enjoyed longer, essentially slowing down the best moments of our lives so we can enjoy them more. Instead, we typically tend to have our happiest memories being experienced the quickest. Seeing him as an alcoholic is definitely a metaphor for that. The sentence written on the face, "The world is yours," heavily implies that. The world is yours is your desire to do stuff you want to do. Gregory hands the protagonist a cocktail called the Time Traveler. Obviously, Gregory is the bartender at his own establishment because there are no real employees thanks to OSHA regulations. She sees herself at a church smoking a cigarette, with bells and gossip being overheard. The gossip being about a scandalous divorce. You see vertical film lines implying she is watching it in her own head, cinematically like a movie, similar to how memories get watched in her own head, but not actually cinematic. You hear a man say, "So your career is more important than I am? This relationship is over." Pretty sure he's the same voice actor from the protagonist of the first season. She gets out of her own head to find that the Daddy Clock is saying, "Time is money," after falling over. This is the balance she needs to find in the world from the Sun Clock. Sun Clock has the world written on him, "Time is money." Helps the father clock go back to where he was supposed to be. Time is money is the ultimate balance of "The world is yours." She receives another drink from the bartender, Gregory. It is a cocktail called Jealousy. The episode then cuts. In the next episode, it starts with her continuing to be drunk from the previous episodes. She's having a negative thought train about what she remembered at the bar. She comes across a black sheep who is going to try to help her sleep. He fails very comically.
If you count me, 1 sheep. Ow. Ow, that hurt.
Black sheep representing someone who stands out in life, and the sheep jumping represents a very playful annoyance. The sheep isn't trying to help her sleep as much as the sheep being just chaotically annoying. He falls asleep and says, "I'm not ready for marriage," almost as if her getting married and then the scandalous divorce was literally a game for her. The sheep starts muttering other quotes from the man she was almost going to marry. Gregory says, as the sheep is muttering in his sleep, "I don't know what you're dreaming, but it seems awfully sad," implying that there is some regret. In the next episode, we see a three-eyed Japanese fan dancer known as Fantasy Man inside what I assume is the protagonist's eventual dream from the previous episode. The three-eyed fan dancer has a bonsai tree on his head. These types of dancers are a type of Japanese art usually performed by women, unlike what is going on here. The bonsai tree represents inner peace and mindfulness. The Japanese fan dance represents grace. The heart on the fan represents holding your love for your own fan base. The eye on his forehead as he starts talking is his literal third eye. Third eye in spirituality does represent truth. She stares into his third eye and he starts sharing her innermost desires. He says that he can see her wanting to make love in an elevator. He eventually shows her a wedding where it shows the protagonist from this first season to appear only to switch immediately to Gregory. It immediately segues into her dorm where Gregory hands her a bonsai tree. The flower pot is the face of Fantasy Man himself, implying that it was obviously a gift from him. This part of the show still really confuses me. It implies that Gregory and the protagonist are all heavily intertwined somehow. Wasn't Gregory and the original protagonist both the same person as described in the first season? This was a lot of information to take in, and I'm not really fully sure what it means here. So last time I did this series, I got something entirely wrong. The lizard from the season 1 is actually just a cowboy cactus with a gun. I thought it was a lizard, but I was painfully mistaken, as it turns out, even though I can definitely still see why I would say that. This episode starts out with the fortune frog that can predict Skibidi toilets saying that she sees fire in the near future. This goes on into her dorm, and suddenly the trigger-happy cactus smashes the door. The trigger-happy cactus walks in saying he's in love with her. He hands her a pile of roses. They can be together. Gregory is in the hallway singing the Judgment Boy theme song, walks by the door, and she immediately runs out the door and touches Gregory's face lovingly. They both decide to walk back in with Cactus Gunman in the dorm. Cactus Gunman gets mad and starts saying, "So he's your man," at Gregory. Gregory denies it. Unlike season 1 of the Gregory Horror Show, the gunman gets mad and starts firing at Gregory instead. The fortune frog then starts going on about how fire represents jealousy, and it will be in everyone's future. So this adds a ton of context to the first 2 seasons of the Gregory Horror Show. The original part that was similar to this in season 1, the cactus wanted to shoot the main protagonist in a duel that Gregory was judging. Gregory gets shot accidentally and fires back. This implies that the protagonist of season 2 knew Gregory, the nameless protagonist of season 1, and whoever the gunman is supposed to represent, who clearly isn't happy along with Gregory for being in the crossfire. I also want to expand upon my theory of Gregory being the ego of the protagonist in season 1. If he is the ego of the protagonist in season 1, I feel like there's still a lot more to it. I can't connect the dots, but I know that they are there, and I know there's a way you can figure it out. In the next episode of the Gregory Horror Show, we see Gregory singing the Judgment Boy theme song again. He gets wound up by the sister to Cactus Gunman. The Judgment Boy song being sung by Gregory represents Gregory wanting to express chaotic justice. The sister to Cactus Gunman threatens to hang Gregory by the neck if she does not agree to date her bigger brother, the Cactus Gunman. Gregory is shaking like crazy. You see a brief flashback in this moment to Cactus Gunman shouting at his sister in a moment of shock. James walks in. James then jumps on like a gremlin that he is, and Gregory is being forced to choke harder than he was previously. Cactus Gunman jumps in to save Gregory by cutting the rope down with his gun. Cactus Gunman is mad at his sister for embarrassing him, and they apologize to each other. Cactus Gunman apologizes to the main protagonist on behalf of his sister and wishes everyone their happiness. Gregory is upset and is trying to kill them both for trying to kill himself. I highly suspect every single character in the show is technically a real character. It also might be possible that the mother from season 1 is the reason why all these characters are intertwined with each other. And this also does tie into the soul jars from the previous season. I do not fully know, but this show is clearly symbolic for the eventual redemption of all these characters. In the next episode is about a room in the Gregory Horror Show that contains a factory of Judgment Boys from season 1. In the second season, they are barely mentioned outside of this episode. This episode is literally all about them. The Gold Judgment Boy is teaching the Judgment Boys how to convey judgment. He is very picky about the tone of voice and the way it is said in order to be as artfully perfect. He wants them to sound confident but yet concise. One Judgment Boy has the number 1 written on it. The Judgment Boy says, "You are 26 years old." Another one with the number 2 on it says, "You have a secure job and a wonderful boyfriend." Another one of the Judgment Boys with the number 3 on it says, "The day you are promoted, your boyfriend proposes." The other Judgment Boy with the number 4 on it says, "What are you going to do?" and proceeds to do the normal Judgment Boy routine from season 1. The third Judgment Boy then says, "You chose to turn down your proposal. Your boyfriend picks up a drinking problem and has to be hospitalized." The Golden Judgment Boy then starts to say, "You are 29 years old. Your former boyfriend has just married one of your best friends. What are you now going to do?" Then they do the normal Judgment Boy routine, and it causes the whole place to fall to the ground. The Golden Judgment Boy has a heart fall to the floor, and it keeps going into the endless void. This is so rich with so much meaning, and I find it really entertaining how quickly all of this unfolded, because this was so hard to understand the first time watching this all the way through. This is clearly talking about the chaotic judgment of stuff that happened linearly, very symbolically, by the harbingers of chaos. The first Judgment Boy is talking about something that happened 3 years ago. The second Judgment Boy talks about the success of a positive relationship, but something that unfolds in the middle of those 3 years, I suspect she may have done attempted murder, and that's how she got here. The third Judgment Boy is talking about a wonderful promotion after a lovely love life. He goes on to talk about how the relationship downward spiraled heavily, hence the murder. The Golden Judgment Boy is talking about all of these decisions and how they all threw her heart into a bottomless pit that cannot be filled. This feels incredibly similar to the scene of the 4 Judgment Boys of the Apocalypse from the first season. However, the quotes that they said compared to season 1, I'm not too sure about. The second season feels different, but I'm not sure how it lines up quite compared to the first season. I made a joke in the first episode of this series that the Judgment Boys are like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and this is coming from someone who's never really been interested in reading the Bible, let alone actually reading it. I decided to ask an AI to break down the details of new revelations because I didn't really feel like reading it, just so I could try to understand it. It's a lot of information and a lot of stuff I don't really care too much about, especially with all the atrocious stuff going on right now. These boys aren't really the fate of judgment, more like the fate of corruption and chaos, like the contents of New Revelations. The Judgment Boys just became one of my favorite characters in the show just now. After realizing this, they are beautifully well done, and I do really like that. Segments to Gregory talking to his mother from the first season. His mother wants to eat the protagonist's soul to help her live forever. Gregory is saying that her soul would be much riper if they wait a little longer. Her soul hasn't quite lost and forgotten itself yet. So in the next episode, the protagonist walks in on Gregory talking to his mother about wanting to eat her. She tries to leave the room after learning she's in danger, only for James to stand in her way for reasons that are James. Gregory finds her and she has to make a run for it. The door handle turns into a snake as she was about to try to open the door. James climbs up on the shelf of the collected souls, only to find near the top of the soul jars, there's a Mickey Mouse style lid on the very tippy top jar. The jars fall over and smash. The souls leave, and for the first time ever, James actually is legitimately beautifully afraid.
I'm out of here.
James runs away as fast as he can, and Gregory's mother is on the ground underneath the shelf. Gregory contemplates leaving her there dead, only to find her unscathed and having a complete psychotic meltdown. In the next episode, James hands the protagonist a Mickey Mouse style GPS tracker. The protagonist doesn't want it. James runs off with it and comes across Gregory. Gregory steals it from James, and as James is fighting for it back, he explains that the device is known as the trap mouse. Instead of the user trapping the mouse traps you. Whoever holds the tracker for a certain period of time gets caught in a mouse trap, so to speak. Gregory's mother holds it and gets eaten by the jaws of Justice, the trap mouse. Episode, she tries to escape by leaving the hotel. She comes across a taxi and James joins her for reasons related to her own misery. A taxi represents life's journey and where it takes us. The road itself is the journey. The taxi's license plate reads, "Do you remember me?" Apparently, Pixar must have been inspired by the Gregory Horror Show with the movie Cars, because the taxi is a taxi driver itself. James needs a bathroom break, so the taxi stops. She leaves the car to go look for James. Apparently didn't actually need to use the bathroom. He goes back in the car and drives off without her. Now she's in the graveyard from the previous season, and she's completely left on her own. In the next episode, she comes across an annoying opera singer nobody wants to listen to. She's in a graveyard with skeletons who are annoyed by the opera singer's lack of performance. Skeletons representing a change in life, the opera singer representing how someone can express art, but in a creative and very dramatic way. His head is a record player because it makes noise. While he's initially singing, the needle in the record player is jumping paths, kind of like the path of life she's in right now. The record reads Bizarre Me Mucho, which I'm assuming I'm saying right, and this translates to Kiss Me a Lot in Spanish. Kiss Me a Lot, I'm not too sure of what it's referring to, since it feels important, but it could also be the name of a song that the opera singer is referencing, or even the singer himself. I don't really know though. He gets annoyed with the skeletons and is being forced to leave the graveyard. He asks her kindly if she would be willing to listen to his last performance instead of the annoyed skeletons. She agrees naively, then she gets sucked into the grooves of the record itself, similar to the whole music video behind Smoke on Water by T Purple. The record itself represents memories. The big grooves inside of the record does represent the path of life. She's trying her best to avoid the needle in the record by running as fast as she can to avoid it, while also having to come over the speed of the record being played. She feels rushed in life, essentially. He says you will never forget my melody, for it will be etched into your body eternally. Very, very funny quote, because that is exactly what will happen if the needle of the record player does decide to kiss her. That is also the main reason why she is running for this. She doesn't want to remember you. The symbolic meaning of the needle and the taxi is literally exactly that. The taxi appears in the grooves of the record to pull her out of it. The taxi is actively trying to help her forget him. You hear Gregory's voice telling her to come in quick. The taxi is locked and is going to drive her back to the hotel with Gregory in the front seat. Gregory in the front seat is symbolic for him driving her own life. Before we begin the next segment, and this being the segment I am the most looking forward to talking about, I do want to share a story here. If I don't share this story, the next segment won't make as much sense as it clearly should. I have received a lot of advice in the past, some of that advice being not very glamorous. I've been in the spiritual community for a long time, and this is something that's very common in the spiritual community, is people just giving flat out bad advice and losing themselves and losing each other in the process. A few years ago, I was given advice on how to learn astral projection. Astral projection is a deep meditative state that allows you to leave your body, but not completely. Obviously, you would not be able to leave your full body, or you'd be dead and wouldn't be able to return. That would be not astral projection, but essentially death. The advice went that I could do lucid dreaming, like I sometimes did at the time, and I could say out loud, I am more than a physical body and I will astral project. This would allow me to find the vibrations needed to do more astral projection while in a meditative state. Astral projection requires you to find these vibrations while meditating. Hard to find them if you don't know exactly what it is you are trying to look for or really what they feel like. It could be mistaken for a lot of various different things, and I can definitely see that. Astral projection is not at all the same as dreaming. Dreaming is an easy way to find the vibrations or enter the astral, but it's not the same. Dreaming is going into yourself. Astral projection is going through the physical world spiritually. Astral projection is extremely dangerous if the wrong person is doing it. Any sort of imbalancements or negative thoughts will completely change the experience. Any sort of thoughts will manifest themselves while in this strange dimension. You can also experience spirit possession or negative entity attachments. They're kind of surprisingly common in the astral. Negative entity attachments are when astral entities latch onto your body and feeds off the negative energy it feeds you. These entities will say things disguised as your own thoughts and will try to make you feel worse than you need to feel. Spirit possession is when a spirit steals your body from you and traps your spirit in a way that results in you not fully knowing what is going on around you while you are under control. You will have no idea what is going on until it is too late and your whole life is damaged because of it. A huge part of spirituality is balance within yourself. You can't heal yourself too quickly, for that is essentially a band-aid being ripped off while the wound is still unhealed. Not only that, you can't do too advanced stuff, otherwise you will do things to yourself you didn't really know was possible because you weren't aware of it. A lot of these things have unwanted consequences. Spirituality is the worst things you can possibly receive bad advice on in life. You can hurt so many people, including yourself, for doing dangerous and dumb things. In the next episode of the Gregory Horror Show, we see a character who I believe is dressed as a Chinese dragon doing a dance inside the protagonist's room. It is explained by Gregory, who's watching that thing dance in her room. It's essentially forcing her to dance so she'll leave her body. Rhythm is a vibrational frequency, just like the vibrations required to feel in order to astral project. Him forcing her to astral project is literally the same way that it can actually happen to you. You can feel vibrations unintentionally through other means caused by somebody else. It does happen. It's very rare, but it does happen. And that can cause you to be forced to astral project without much warning or consent. It's essentially known as an abduction. James walks by and wants to watch his grandfather. His grandfather is wearing hearing protection and doesn't want James to get hurt. This is James, and they both get hurt and essentially leave their bodies. Their souls leave their bodies and enter Gregory's mother's soul jars. This is also the moment I start to realize the soul jars probably do contain all the souls of the people we see in the Gregory Horror Show. In the next episode, she smells Gregory's soul after it left his body and is now still inside the jar. I'm not sure why, but Gregory was upset about the fact it obviously smelled bad. Obviously it would smell bad. You're Gregory, like Jesus. The jars break and people flee quickly to leave the jars. James, being James, steals his grandfather's body, possesses it spiritually. The bodies are in the process of being disposed of, for people are believing they had just died. This is also in despite of everyone being clearly dead ass in hell already. His grandfather holds his breath and enters his grandson's body for reasons that are, his body probably smells worse than his own soul. I mean, it is James after all. Meanwhile, the protagonist is just calmly observing from the outside in the astral plane. In the next episode, Gregory starts searching for his body while inside of James's body. The reason Gregory was always cross-eyed is apparently that is how he is, even while inside James' smelly teenage body. Safe to assume it is because Gregory is delusional and doesn't know how to see things for what it is in his own life. James, meanwhile, is annoying Gregory's mother while inside Gregory's body. James starts throwing lost souls at his grandmother. James and Gregory bump into each other by accident and immediately go back into their own bodies. Then Gregory's mother gets mad at, this time, Gregory, because she does not realize that it wasn't him that did that. The lost souls that were in the jars from the previous episodes start to wander the hotel. They manage to escape and now find a solar eclipse and start heading towards it. Solar eclipses being metaphors for portals into a whole new world. In the next episode, we come across an old reoccurring character, the Grim Reaper. He offers to serve the thoughts of reality to the souls that went towards the solar eclipse, which does include the main protagonist. He does this for everyone but the main protagonist. The Grim Reaper says she is not ready to separate herself. She's too early to be set free. She's too longing for reality. He uses his scythe to create a portal to show her where her old body was. In the next episode, we see a group of people praying around the body. In this room, it is being centered around the taller character whose head is essentially the Eye of Providence. It appears they are trying to do a necromancy ceremony to awaken her body. The Eye of Providence represents protection and divine intervention. Necromancy is the word used to describe summoning of the dead. However, I don't think that's at all what is going on here. All the symbolism seems to refer to someone in a funeral who's going to pass, but not in an actual necromancy ceremony. When you go to a funeral, you say goodbye to someone and you bid them your farewell. Gregory is watching this whole thing unfold. Meanwhile, he is saying the only person they should consider a lord is him, essentially. The Grim Reaper is requesting that she go back to her body. She is terrified looking at the ceremony and what's going on to her body. This is because you don't go to funerals to celebrate one's life, despite that being what it is supposed to be. You go to funerals to cope with your own feelings for what will be eventually lost, no matter how hard you try. Imagine dying, how uncomfortable it would be seeing people talk about your life to your lifeless body. It's not like she couldn't already hear them as a spirit. It's not like she didn't really experience any of this. The Grim Reaper says if she keeps waiting, she might regret the consequences. Kind of like a near-death experience where the longer you wait, the harder it is to recover physically from being dead. The Eye of Providence on one of the characters' heads starts to have blood coming out of it. Eyes are the windows into oneself, and this is a metaphor for the trauma occurring over the loss of the person being dead. Blood being one's sense of power, and losing it is also a metaphor for being afraid. Fear is a part of trauma. The man with the Eye of Providence starts getting mad, for he can't resurrect her, heavily implying that he is a doctor trying to heal her from her near death. The Grim Reaper, being the literal Grim Reaper she saw as almost fully died, is commonly seen actually during near-death experiences. In this scene, her coffin then starts to get burnt. This is because people are losing hope she can recover, and one of the things that can happen when you're on a hospital bed having a near-death experience is they can turn off your life support. At the end of the episode, people trying to resurrect her fall like dominoes onto Gregory. This is after she starts to come back to life. They start to turn on Gregory for some unknown reason. Gregory starts running out with the axe in his head. In the next episode, we see the memory television fish with Gregory and his mother on the face of it. Gregory and his mother are arguing about what to do about the main protagonist and are debating on how to eat her. James is apparently using the camera to control the broadcast of the TV fish on his grandparents. He manages to record them saying how willful she is, and it's being broadcast everywhere in the hotel. In the next episode, we see Neko Zombie still inside his prison cell, understandably. Neko Zombie starts talking about how he is in his cell, his appearance is freaky looking, and how he is similar to the main protagonist in regards to it all being sewn up. In this moment, I start to realize Neko Zombie is acting similar to Jack Ketch, the famous executioner of England. I guess I was wrong entirely about Neko Zombie in the first episode. To be fair, it was also the first episode. We see a red cloth being wrapped around Neko Zombie's hurt foot from his chains. He tells the main protagonist to escape when the moon is risen. Apparently, Neko Zombie is offering the main protagonist the ability to escape from the Gregory Horror Show altogether. All she needs to do is to receive help from Neko Zombie or just leave. There's nothing stopping you from leaving. You don't need the help from Neko Zombie. I wonder if this anything has to do with Shakespeare, for I literally have no idea if Shakespeare is relevant to Jack Ketch. We see Neko Zombie wrap the cloth around his neck. We see the full moon already risen from Neko Zombie's jail cell. The main protagonist starts running out of the hotel. The moon representing change, and Neko Zombie being something that was supposed to be a reference to it. It feels like they're referencing maybe Shakespeare, but I'm not entirely sure. Not super cultured in that regard. The episode segments to Gregory and his mother. It gets confirmed that the whole show is actually hell. The whole Gregory house is just basically for people who are in doubt. Every character is feeding on the doubts of every single character in the Gregory home overall. Every single character is heavily implied to be symbolic for the protagonist, who they were as people, and also the people that they were associated with. This makes me draw to a theory about the whole show, and I thought you'd want to hear it. To put this into perspective, if Bigfoot, aliens, vampires, and werewolves were sitting there smoking a joint in your neighbor's backyard, would you think that was real? Even if you had all the evidence and found all kinds of physical and non-physical evidence, would you still have an easy time of accepting that those weren't kids in a costume? Belief systems are kind of hard to avoid. Hope is just knowing that doubt exists, essentially. That is why all these characters are in the Gregory home. Neko Zombie walks in and starts burning the home from where Gregory and his mother are standing. Then Neko Zombie goes full Doom Guy execution mode and tries to take revenge on the entire Gregory home. In the next episode, everything is on fire, similar to what the Skibidi Future Predicting Frog once said and yet again happened to be right about. Except it is very literal and not just entirely related to jealousy, unlike what it was heavily implied. All the lost souls managed to escape from Gregory's mother's vault as well. Neko Zombie is trying to tell the protagonist to step into the flames to be able to leave the Gregory home, like the true antagonist Neko Zombie actually is. I don't believe that Neko Zombie is trying to be helpful in regards to her leaving the home. Fire is symbolic for banishment or getting rid of unwanted things, hence why fire is also used in banishment rituals. I think Neko Zombie is trying to end the protagonist's suffering once and for all in a very unhelpful way, more vengeful way. Gregory goes full lightning ghost mode, similar to the first season. He starts saying she's part of the Gregory home and she can't leave. Everyone will go away, and I do believe this does include the protagonist as well. Honestly, Neko Zombie is, like the Judgment Boys, are easily one of the best characters in the show for these reasons. Fire was originally foreshadowed as being a force of jealousy. Fire is not actually for jealousy. Fire is essentially Neko Zombie, and that is exactly what is going on here. I believe the only jealous one here is actually Neko Zombie. So in the next episode, the Gregory home collapses and everyone inside dies or gets extremely hurt. We see her standing over the wreckage of everything that just unfolded. Dead characters and all kinds of carnage everywhere. Gregory is left with his left ear missing and his left eye with burns all over. His arms falls off and needs to get reattached before it gets left on the ground, like his left arm would have. James appears while being James yet again. It also appears she is now part of the Gregory Horror family as herself, since they decided not to eat her soul and let her turn into an antagonist. Gregory starts to admit her own reality was what was being affected by the fire, which was pretty obvious given the nature of the symbolism that was being used. Gregory home gets rebuilt in a transitional sequence.
It's time to greet our next guest.
And it is heavily implied she is one of the people who's probably going to be a main antagonist in the next season. Everything returns to what it once was. Life gives you a stroke of genius. You press the record button. If you can't do that, you start to see yourself as the victim of your own story. The moment you start to see yourself as the victim of your own story, it's the same moment you start to become the villain of your own story. Hence why this video was extremely hard to record. I was way too picky about the audio. If you chose to persevere through all the hardships and painful experiences of life without losing yourself, you're an absolute superhero, and you sure as hell will feel like one. I ultimately do feel bad for the main protagonist, along with every single character in the show essentially losing themselves, but ultimately it was everyone's choice to simply do so. You cannot live other people's lives just as much as other people cannot live your own life. This season was absolutely spectacular. I was a complete idiot for not seeing half of this coming. I'm really looking forward to doing a video on the third season. You should expect that much sooner than you expected to see this video. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.